Thank you, everyone, and good morning. How's everyone feeling this morning? Better. There's a lot of you in this room. How are you feeling this morning? Yes, we're in for a long day again, but an exciting one at that. And someone very special here to kick it off this morning is Sarah Baldeo. She's a distinguished TED Talk and global keynote speaker with a diverse background in neuroscience, technology, corporate strategy, investing, and entrepreneurship. With almost 20 years of leadership experience, she has made significant contributions in various fields. Currently, Sarah serves as CEO at Quotient, a global IT innovation firm. Most recently, Sarah was innovation partner at CGI, one of the world's largest IT and business consulting firms. Sarah is a 2023 Global 40 Under 40 award winner and board of directors member on four boards focusing on social impact, technology accessibility, and community change. She's not busy at all. Sarah Baldeo's expertise and insights empower individuals to navigate technology change, foster diversity and inclusion, and drive value-creating change in their professional environments. She offers practical knowledge and actionable strategies to meet the challenges and opportunities of our rapidly evolving world. Please put your hands together for Sarah.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am excited to be here. Thank you so much, Nicole, for that illustrious welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence, generative AI, and what I hope to share with you is to really demystify what artificial intelligence is. I think everyone talks about AI, but very few people are data scientists or data engineers, and so it's just this buzzword that people keep mentioning as the solution to all of your problems. Hopefully today we can navigate demystifying the lexicon together. I really want to talk about how in property management and parking, there are ways that AI can help you focus on generating revenues and really just understanding the pros, the cons, and what does it even mean for you in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to kick things off with talking about generative AI, conversational AI. I do want to walk you through the total cost of ownership. What are the impacts to your capital expenditure budget, your OpEx? What can you do to help improve what your income statement and your cash flow statement looks like? Then I want to give you some tangible examples of use cases in property management, real estate, and commercial real estate. What does it mean for the future? Help you understand how when you are changing your strategy for revenue generation, there are research and development credits that are available to you. And then we'll end with, the big scary, what are the concerns? I think on stages, the main thing that audiences say to me, they're terrified that AI is going to take their jobs and that it will replace human beings. If you remember, one thing that I say this morning, remember, AI is not here to take your job. It is here to take the parts of jobs that nobody wants to do, which are the repetitive tasks, and really to enable people to focus on critical thinking. So, before we jump into the exciting ways of how artificial intelligence can help you generate more revenue in your organizations and evolve on your trajectory of innovation, I want to really break down what is the lexicon of artificial intelligence and some of the verbiage that it uses. So GAI stands for Generative Artificial Intelligence, and CAI stands for Conversational AI. Within AI, there's numerous subclassifications, and artificial intelligence encompasses everything from Alexa to self-driving cars. But if you can just really look at what are the subclassifications and what does it mean, it can help illuminate how you're going to use it in transforming your organization. So within artificial intelligence, there's three main areas: ANIs, ASIs, and AGIs. ANI stands for Artificial Narrow Intelligence, and you can really encapsulate this thinking of ANIs by, it's really designed for performing a set of narrow tasks. So for example, if someone has a driver's license and you're scanning that driver's license, if you want to extrapolate the name, the date of birth, is it a valid license? That's using optical character recognition. That's artificial narrow intelligence. ASIs is artificial super intelligence. So Alexa, Siri, Cortana. These are examples of ASIs. And the last one, AGIs, is a very hypothetical field. This is the field that people are the most afraid of. And the reason they're afraid of it is because for artificial general intelligence to exist, AI would need to become sentient and self-aware and to be able to make decisions without any human intervention. So that's the real scary part of artificial intelligence. And the truth is that will not happen without responsible generative AI controls in place to ensure that human beings are always part of your AI trajectory. So within artificial intelligence, there's these three concentric circles: machine learning, neural networks, and the last one, which is generative models. So machine learning really looks at extrapolating data from a pre-described data set and giving you information. Machine learning is also referred to as deep learning. Beyond machine learning, we have neural networks. And neural networks, I'm a neuroscientist, I was before I got into technology. Neural networks are really designed to mimic the human brain. And it's this concept of a series of interconnected nodes that can learn from each other, evolve, and exchange information. Now, the next level of neural networks that is on the horizon, I think Precise ParkLink, every time I've worked with them over the years, they're always talking about what is coming in the future. For neural networks, the next level is something called neuromorphic engineering. And this is really fascinating, whether you're a neuroscientist or not. It's this idea of what if machines could actually remember information? What if neural network nodes could remember information and make informed decisions based on what they previously did? So that's the next level that we expect to see within the next 5 years. So the last circle, if you have heard the term ChatGPT, that's what generative models are. And generative models are basically approached in two different ways. The first way is called a GAN, which is a generative adversarial network. And the second way that you can approach a transformer architecture for generative models is called the VA. That's a variational auto encoder. Now, what do these nice acronyms mean? Technologists love to use acronyms, and I think we do it for two reasons. Either we're lazy, or we want to make ourselves feel smarter than everyone else, and I don't think that's the way to get people to adopt technology. So a generative adversarial network, this is what you would see when you're using ChatGPT or BERT, which is the ChatGPT version that Google came up with. And really this is picture, if anybody likes Transformers or anybody has children and knows what Transformers are, picture two robots in a fight. And they're fighting each other. And really the purpose of this is to make a stronger model and to have predictive text. So with generative models that use generative adversarial networks, the goal is to predict what's the next word in the sentence. If you provide it information, it can actually learn. So as an example, there's two versions of ChatGPT. There's the paid version and there's the non-paid version. If you tell ChatGPT, here's a paragraph that I wrote, I want you to write a paragraph in my own voice. The more you work with the model, the more the adversarial network is going to function and give you more accurate representation of what you wanted it to do. A variational autoencoder is not so much about creativity. So it doesn't really focus on, okay, we want to be creative, we want to help generate new content. It's more about accuracy, and it's more for really looking at metrics and data and producing something that is accurate. So when you're using ChatGPT, it is generative adversarial network, and that's really what's happening. It's taking information, again, from a human being, and taking those prompts and yielding something. And I think that we consider as professionals, how can we use Gen AI in our daily life? There are a huge amount of tasks that can be automated, but it's always going to require a human being at the end of the day. Now, for anyone in the room who has ever had the fun activity of closing out their fiscal year end, which I assume most people have had to go through this torture, that they understand what the total cost of ownership is. the biggest feedback that I get from the organizations I work with is, how much is this going to cost me if I implement Gen AI? So historically, when companies thought about total cost of ownership, they really were making decisions for maybe 5 years, 10 years. They picked, for example, an ERP that they liked. They looked at amortizing that cost over 5 to 10 years. And the truth is, if it's SAP or Oracle, you probably heavy loaded those costs. People don't make decisions this way. When you look at technology and implementing technology, you might be needing to upgrade your tech every 1 to 2 years. So when you think about the total cost of ownership for Gen AI, it can really help you drive down how much you're spending on upgrading your technical infrastructure. When you think about capital expenditures and how much it's going to cost you, you can build a Gen AI minimum viable product in 1 to 3 months. There's large-scale government organizations like WSIB is doing this right now. It costs under $50,000 to deploy Gen AI for organizations like WSIB. It's not expensive. It's not complex. And most of the solutions that we're seeing in the market are either low code or no code, which means people aren't learning coding languages in the way they used to. When I left neuroscience and I became an application architect, I learned Java, then I learned Python. People aren't learning coding languages in the same way. And what we're seeing is the developers that you have as part of your OpEx costs, you're finding you don't need as many developers. If you use Azure AI as an example, you can actually train it to be a SQL code generator as one of the use cases that I've seen. And so when we look at our technical infrastructure, whether you're a hospital, whether you're in real estate, whether you're in commercial property management, there's a huge amount of technical debt that we're facing. And Generative AI is one of those tools that is minimum CapEx, optimizes your OpEx, and drives up your retained earnings. So I know those are a lot of financial terms, but really these are tangible impacts that you're going to see to your organization. So when we think about really just the outcomes that I mentioned, I do believe that within your organizations, when you go back and you talk to your teams, you want to encourage them to use these tools. Encourage them to explore ChatGPT and work for Google. If you have graphic designers, have them use things like Midjourney or Shutterstock AI. It's going to completely transform the time to finish project completion, at least by 50 to 60%. So the speed to market if you're in product innovation, the speed to market if you're in marketing, if you're looking at how quickly you can deploy something. Generative AI can really help. I encourage you to think about things like natural language processing and semantic processing. Really what that is, how do you build the prompts that you're going to put into a generative AI tool? So how many people in this room have used ChatGPT? So I think that's half of you yes, and half of you no. And so ChatGPT is free. For Google, it's free. Shutterstock AI is free. Midjourney is free. I was giving a keynote earlier this week, and I was sharing this with some of the speakers. Somebody said to me, how do I even access ChatGPT? Google it. Just literally type in ChatGPT, Google it. There used to be an issue. If you had an iPhone, you couldn't download it on an iPhone. Now you can download it on an iPhone, you can download it on Android. And what I would encourage everyone to do is try it, use it, fail, keep using it again. And the more you use these tools, the easier it is going to be for you to understand the value that you're getting out of it, and you're training the model. So if you're in technology, you would have heard GIPO, which means garbage in, garbage out. If you give a generative model a nonsense prompt, it's going to give you back nonsense. And so natural language processing is this concept of understanding what is the prompt that I need to put into a generative AI tool to get what I want out of it. And this is also about human beings being driven. So we're learning these new skills. And I do believe that when we think about the future and really just the future of what it means for property management, the use cases that I'm seeing are things like maintenance logs. In parking specifically, there are parking organizations in Europe that are already using conversational AI When we look at how can this enable parking attendants? What if you have an underground parking property and people are driving in at night and you have these great tools that use optical character recognition to scan the license plate? What if you have a conversational AI bot that can scan access to your property, that could mitigate theft and robberies, that could track even things like, oh, someone has access to the parking garage. There are generative AI tools that can look at human movement and see based on someone's movement, are they likely to try to access a vehicle that's not theirs? You can take that feedback from the video and you can feed it back to your command center and say, someone is accessing the vehicle, this is their behavior, these are their movements, it doesn't seem to be their vehicle. So there's a lot of automation in terms of even things like I've seen organizations use digital twinning when they're looking at building out new parking structures. I've seen organizations that use things like generative AI for property descriptions, and they're just automating how the content is produced. So specifically in property management, real estate, and commercial property, there are use cases from everything to listing property, automating maintenance logs, looking at predictive analytics for is this structure safe, what's going to happen in the future. And really, my best advice, don't try to do everything all at once. I've worked with a lot of organizations who they'll go to a big consulting firm, they'll get a list of 10 things they need to do, and then they try to do them all at the same time. As much as I think artificial intelligence is a powerful tool to increase revenue, to drive down costs, and to help automate the parts of jobs that people don't necessarily enjoy doing, it is important to mitigate risk when you look into deploying these within your organizations, just so you can protect yourself. Now, the future of infrastructure, I think, is something that a lot of people are talking about. Not just urban infrastructure, but as we look at innovation in vehicles. The government of Canada has come up with this lovely predict that by 2035, we're not going to have gas-powered vehicles produced anymore. And there's this huge focus on driving down greenhouse gas emissions. Whether we think this is true, or we think it's realistic, or probable, it's not the question. It's where are we going in the future as we look at mobility? When we think about transportation and we think about mobility, or mobility as a service, I had conversations with organizers who were in urban infrastructure for the city of Toronto, for Peel region, and what it will end up being in the future. And really, they're all focused on the same thing. How do they reduce the number of vehicles that are on the road? And what does that mean if you suddenly have less vehicles? If you have 50% less vehicles in 20 years, our infrastructure is not built for that. We have roads. We don't have the proper public transportation infrastructure to support everyone using public transport. So when we think about the future of infrastructure, I think what we're called upon as leaders to just reflect upon is, what does that mean for us as innovators? And how do we meet that future goal? If the future goal is let's drive down greenhouse gas emissions and hit our ESG targets, these are nice goals to have. But what does that mean for the future of what cities will look like? What does that mean for the future of people needing to get to a hospital and having emergency response vehicles and having roads that function? We can't just stop using roads. So I shared here the 5 Qs of SHRED. SHRED, for those that are not aware, is a government program that provides grants anytime you're investing in innovation. So as revenues change, and we see revenues coming from different areas of organizations, the government of Canada has launched 5 what we call super clusters through the Innovation, Science, Economic Development Agency. And one of the 5 super clusters is on digital transformation. They are giving millions of dollars in grants towards grant credits as you look at research, development, and innovation. And generative AI is one of those areas that are being funded by the government. So as you think about where can you get funding for all these beautiful ideas that Sarah is talking about, you can get funding through government grants that are really focused on driving that innovation. So the regulators have come down and they made all these beautiful plans for what the future is going to look like. But the government is stepping up and saying, okay, we need to meet people halfway, and we need to give them a mechanism to fund this type of innovation. Now, how many people know what this is? What is it? Oh, okay. So this is Hyperloop technology. And this is kind of the future of transportation and what transportation is going to look like. I have my own ideas of how likely it is that people will agree to be put in a tube that is moving at 700 miles per hour, but Elon Musk probably disagrees. So right now, in 2024, Hyperloop technology is being launched in California. They are going to start testing Hyperloop technology that can move people these great expanses of geography faster than ever before. In China, they're launching this type of transportation for products, for physical packages, and for people. So I think there's three main areas that we're seeing in the evolution of transportation and the future of mobility: electrification, automation, and servitization. With electrification, I've had discussions with trucking companies, and they tell me we're only transforming 10% of our fleet to EVs. And the reason is we don't have the infrastructure in Canada to support electric vehicles as much as we would like. Not all parking garages have charging stations. Not all condos have charging stations. It's very expensive. Nobody wants to run out of gas, and nobody wants to run out of charge on their vehicle. And there's a bigger issue. There's just not enough EVs to be available to people. So if anybody has tried to order an EV, there is a very long wait. So electrification and moving towards EVs is definitely happening. But there is a significant delay between reality and what all the policymakers want to see. The second kind of big category that we're seeing in terms of automation, autonomous vehicles. So a few years ago, Budweiser decided that they were going to do a bit of a test, and they were going to see if they have a truck, a Budweiser truck, go from coast to coast, completely unaccompanied. It did not work out very well. Autonomous vehicles are a great idea. Uber also tried this a couple years ago in downtown Toronto. They deployed a pilot, and they said, okay, we're going to have a small fleet of autonomous vehicles. There were a lot of accidents. And autonomous vehicles make sense if all the vehicles that you're working with are autonomous. The minute you have people driving cars, and then you have autonomous vehicles, there's going to be accidents because it's an uncontrolled environment. And the algorithm that is running an AED can't always predict what people are going to do. I'll give you a tangible example of when I was having this conversation with an AED manufacturer. I asked them the question: if there is a car in a parking garage, and it has two paths. In its path, there is a 65-year-old person, and there's a 12-year-old person. And it has to avoid an obstacle. And either way, it's going to hit a pedestrian. This is a very powerful example. So what does the algorithm do? They didn't have an answer. So when we think about automation, algorithms are not built to make these types of very difficult and real decisions. As we all know, when we're out in the environment, change happens, environmental conditions change, the weather conditions change, there are emergency vehicles, and so automation is another one of those kind of key areas of innovation that is moving, but it's not necessarily moving as fast as we heard. The last one, servitization, is moving very quickly when we look at what regulators are doing. So right now, the best example of this is Uber, and it really is mobility as a service. But there's quite a few working authorities that are moving towards offering bikes. They're moving towards people saying, well, I don't want to have a vehicle. I want to pick up a bike at your parking facility. I want to pick up a car. I want to be able to exchange the two. So really this servitization area, there's a large pension plan administrator on the West Coast. These investors in innovation that are managing pension plans, I can tell you they're investing in mobility as a service, and they see it as a way to enable the future of infrastructure. Now, I gave you a lot of information. Key takeaways. Generative AI aligns with robotic process automation. It aligns with mobility as a service and this future of infrastructure discussion. We can think about all of these lofty goals for ESG and trying to reduce the amount of cars on the road, but really the question is, how is Gen AI going to do that? And I think that's a key pillar of what you can remember as you go back into your organizations. And the last one, property management is evolving, but as we think about driverless vehicles, as we think about automation, it's really to make these decisions about how you're going to retrofit or you're going to make changes in your properties to be very realistic about how quickly the market is adopting these new pieces of technology. Because that's the question. How quickly is the population going to adopt these new pieces of tech? Now, I so far have made artificial intelligence sound pretty rosy and beautiful and everything's great and we're all going to live our best lives. There are some serious concerns, which I'm sure many of us have heard of in terms of cybersecurity. When we think about open source infrastructure, a lot of generative AI tools are built using what's called open source code. And that basically means that anybody can access your code. So there are severe concerns with cybersecurity and personal information, particularly in parking and property management, where you're housing a lot of data. We think about generative AI, as I said at the beginning, the biggest fear that I hear is that AI is going to take over human being jobs. And the truth is that in every industrial revolution, we're in the fifth industrial revolution right now. At every inflection point in technology, there's fear. When the telephone was invented, there was fear. People used carrier pigeons at one point. When BlackBerry said that they were going to take away their keypad and that iPhone was just going to have a touchpad, the founders of BlackBerry said this is nonsense. Nobody would want to have a phone that doesn't have this lovely clickings down. Palm Pilot decided they were going to buy a BlackBerry and that didn't go anywhere. Again, there's always fear. There's always resistance. When we think about the physical world changing, I talked about infrastructure. Urban infrastructure is changing at a very fast pace. There's different cities in the world that have adopted this smart cities and circular economy approach, but it's taking a little bit longer to get to North America. And I think that we're actually taking a very responsible approach to mitigating how much we integrate artificial intelligence into our day-to-day life. I do believe that customers are going to be seeking this type of innovation. When you look at the workforce changes and you look at the population changes in terms of age, in terms of cohort demographics, consumers are looking for innovation. They are looking to see changes in how they interact with machines. And when we talk about AI and responsible generative AI, really this is about the bias that can be built into algorithms on the back. So when you're looking at solutions that you're picking, and you're talking to vendors and service providers, I would ask them very difficult question. How do you ensure that you eliminate things like sample bias, confirmation bias? These are two of the big types of bias that we can see in AI algorithms. And challenge them. What they're proposing to you is transformative, it is exciting, but be willing to be skeptical. And that is it for me. I would love to take some questions. I know that was a lot of information.